Hello guys, it's me Simo Orahara, and in this video I want to talk about something I saw in the trailer about Ichigo that I really loved. It's Ichigo's new fighting style. The quick clips we saw of Ichigo battling Yhwach or dodging Ichida's attacks give us a sneak peek into how Ichigo has evolved, both in his fighting spirit or his combat techniques, which for years revolved around using a single sword. So in this video guys, I'm going to dive into Ichigo's new fighting style and how he transitioned from wielding one sword to dual wielding. So first of all guys, it is important to note that characters who use two swords in Bleach are pretty rare, and that is because swords in Bleach aren't just regular weapons. They are zanpakutos. In each Shinigami is granted only one asauchi, meaning one zanpakuto. And historically, only two people in Soul Society have had the privilege of fighting with two swords. And I'm speaking here about Kyorako no Kitake. Kyorako has two swords because Ohana created Okyo to conceal the secret sword. And Ichigo shares several traits with both Kyorako no Kitake. For instance, Okitake's zanpakuto is a single sword in its sealed form, but when he activates Shikai, it becomes two swords of equal length. And here where Ichigo I find it similar to Kitake. Ichigo has two Zangetsu at the Shikai level, since Zangetsu is always in constant release of Shikai. And as you know, we don't know what Zangetsu's sealed form looks like. All we know is that Ichigo can manifest Zangetsu as either two swords or one, as we have seen in the Halo one-shot. As for the similarity between Ichigo and Kyorako, it is lie in the length of their swords. Kyorako has a long sword, katana, and a short sword, wakizashi, in their sealed form. And as a PS guys, this style of fighting with two swords was developed by the famous samurai, Miyamoto Musashi, who fought with a long katana and a short wakizashi. And this is also evident in Ichigo's Shikai, where he has a long sword representing his Shinigami powers and a short one representing his Quincy powers. And we can say that Kyorako is probably the best dual wielder since he has been fighting with two swords for centuries, whether in their sealed state or Shikai, as seen in his fight with Stark, where Kyorako skillfully uses both hands in combat, and Stark confirmed the advantage of dual wielding over single wielding, especially for someone as skilled as Kyorako. And here guys, I'm strictly talking about sword fighting skills, not the power of the sword's zanpakuto, as that adds another layer of advantages for those with this type of weapon. So back to Ichigo, he has always been unique. Initially, he fought with one sword. Not only that, but in Shikai, the sword was in its long, familiar form, which Ichigo carried on his back in a constantly release of Shikai. In Bankai, the sword would change into a different form. Therefore, Ichigo's acquisition of two swords by splitting Zangetsu into a long one representing his Shinigami power and a short sword representing his Quincy power has drastically changed his fighting style on multiple levels, whether in engagement or blocking attacks. And as we can see, the two swords have maintained their unique form different from other zanpakutos, remaining in a constantly release of Shikai, and the main long sword stays in the same place as the old sword on Ichigo's back, while the short sword like Kyorako's is now positioned at his place. So I imagine that along with the training Ichigo underwent with Ichibi regarding the Erato Sando, he must have undergone some training to get to use the two swords. And I think this is true because it doesn't seem easy. Even without any powers, one must train to achieve that level of coordination in using both two swords, whether for offense or defense, and how to synchronize them and use techniques specific to that style. Moreover, Ichigo has an additional challenge, since his Quincy and Shinigami powers are not entirely complementary. However, despite all these complications, Ichigo was able to show in a short time that he could fight with the two swords very skillfully, especially as seen in the trailer and what he previously demonstrated in his fight against the Quincy girls. For instance, in a scene not shown in the anime, we see Ichigo telling Candice that he also has two swords, thinking Candice was fighting with the two swords as well. And as you can see guys, Ichigo can use both swords in defense, especially in direct engagement. As for blocking attacks from a distance, Ichigo can use his short sword to launch small Getsuga Tensho to block incoming attacks, or use both swords together to launch a new Getsuga Tensho. As you can see, the more intense Ichigo says the technique, the stronger it becomes, especially when Ichigo fights strong opponents. I don't know whether I should say unfortunately or not, because Ichigo's strength or his fighting with his new power didn't show much except with Yhwach in two phases. The first phase in the Royal Palace, which we will see in the third part, and the final phase, which is the ultimate battle against Yhwach. I mean, in the first phase there weren't any strong battles for Ichigo, you could say only skirmishes with Yhwach, which I didn't like. I mean, how come Ichigo didn't have many fights in this arc? Imagine that when Ichigo's powers were limited, he fought multiple characters on various levels, until the arc ended with him reaching a certain level. But what happened in the final arc was different. However, from what appears now in the trailer, the battle between Yhwach and Ichigo as well as his battle against Yuryu, we will see in those battles many additions. And this is what we need for Ichigo as well. Yes, we want additions for other characters, but Ichigo needs some focus, especially on how he fights and his new power that was limited in the past. So returning to Ichigo in his new style, it is noticeable that he now fights on several levels. For example, as we mentioned, he can launch Getsuga Tensho with his short sword or launch Getsuga Tensho with his big sword as he did against Yhwach. But what honestly surprised me was Ichigo's incredible development in using his speed in reaction to avoid and block attacks with both swords against Yuryu, or blocking Yhwach's attack by placing both swords together. All this makes me excited to see Ichigo's new fights, because in his previous fight with Candice, Ichigo wasn't fighting seriously, but in front of Yhwach, he will need to fight with all his strength. And of course we don't know how much additions that will be for Ichigo, and whether it will affect the final battle of Ichigo against Yhwach. And that's the main reason why I didn't want to talk about that fight, and prefer to wait for Ichigo's fight that will be in the third part, and whether Ichigo's new style will have other additions that weren't in the manga, I mean new techniques or even new mode, who knows. And one of the things that I want to know is how Kubo will handle it between the first event of the fight with Yhwach, which will happen in the third part as we said, and the final fight at the end of the arc. I mean, will Kubo be happy with adding combat scenes in both events, or will there another events before the final battle where Ichigo will have another fight? Because this is what Kubo always did before. Ichigo always had a very strong fight before the final battle, like Ichigo versus Zaraki before his battle against Byakuya at the end of the Soul Society arc, and Ichigo versus Ilikura before his battle against Sasuke Aizen. That's why I'm really excited to see new additions regarding Ichigo and his new power, whether new technique or even new fight. So what about you guys? Tell me what you think about this in the comments, and see you guys in my next video.